There are actual filters that are going to look at the data as it streams into the account, and are going to act on that data, filter that data as it comes into the account. Now, these apply on the view level, what we used to know as profiles. Now, if you remember, we said that the data actually is stored in the web property, which is one up in the hierarchy from the profile or the view. And what happens here is we can have lots of different views that are looking at that same data store from the web property, but depending on which of these filters we apply, it's going to change the way that we view that data. These come in on the hit level. So as the data is streaming into the account, it decides whether or not to apply it to this particular profile based on that filter at the time that it streams into the account. Now, because it's happening as it streams into the account, it's going to start from now, from the moment you apply it forward. It's not retroactive like the advanced segments were. It's something that's going to happen from now moving forward. So we generally recommend that you start with a new profile. It's usually pretty confusing and doesn't make a whole lot of sense to look at an old view that had data in it, then we applied this particular filter, and now it's got different data in it. That can be pretty confusing. And we want to make sure also to be very clear that these are destructive, meaning this is not something that's going to be temporarily applied and then we delete it and it's back to normal. This is going to be permanent. This particular view is going to change forever when you apply this filter. So again, another reason you may want to think about applying this to a new one, especially if you're just testing this out and if you aren't 100% sure what this particular filter is going to do. So now with all those warnings, I want to show you why you might want to use these and how we can do some things here that you really can't do anywhere else. Head on over to the interface here. And we're going to go into the admin section here. Now again, this is going to apply to the view or the profile level. We head on down here to filters. And you see I've got a filter applied to this particular one. We're going to take a look at that in a minute. But for now, let's just go ahead and click New Filter and see the interface here. You can apply existing filters, which will give you options to choose from, or create a new one. We're going to take a look at today at the predefined filters. These are ones that Google thinks are handy and ones that they've basically set it up for you already. Anything in the predefined filter we could do in the custom filter, but for now we'll take a look at the options here. The first one they give you here is the traffic from ISP domain. I like that they renamed this. This used to be just traffic from the domain, and it was really confusing because people were trying to look at this as if it was their own domain. So, www.cardinalpath.com. And that's really not what this is at all. What this is going to do is it's going to filter in or out data from the ISP's domain. Usually what people are trying to do when they do this is they are trying to filter out their own internal company data. So we've got employees, and I don't want to confuse the marketing that I have of potential customers from traffic that's coming from inside my own company. To be honest, I really don't like this idea. There's a couple of reasons. One is that you don't necessarily own your own domain from your ISP. What I mean by that is if you looked at the IP address for Cardinal Path, it would actually say Time Warner Business Class. They're the ones who own it. Even though we have the static IP and it's our company, they actually own the IP address. So if you were trying to look at cardinalpath.com and filter that out, it wouldn't actually filter it out because it would be from Time Warner Business Class. Now, of course, if you filtered out all of Time Warner Business Class, you would be filtering out much more than just Cardinal Path. So that's not all that helpful. And on the other side of that, if you are large enough that you own your own block of IP addresses, then you're certainly large enough to walk over to your IT administrator and say, hey, what is our external IP address? And you can filter that way. Generally speaking, I advise people to flip down to the second one here, which is IP addresses, and filter those instead. It's a much cleaner, simpler way to do it, and you can be sure what you're getting. So let's go ahead and start here with the filter name. People tend to make these very short and cryptic. I think that's a terrible idea. You want to be able to really understand what this is just by looking at it. So in this case, I'm going to say exclude office IP address. So I know what I'm doing. I'm excluding things. Just look right away. I know exactly what this is. Now the next question is, what is my IP address? The easiest way to do that by far is to look up at Google, just to go here and type in, what is my IP address? And it's going to come back with this number, which is your external IP address. Now the key here is people think that this is the IP address of their computer. It's not. Every computer on your internal network is going to have its own IP address, but those are internal IP addresses. What we're looking for here is what's that IP address that everything gets funneled to when it hits that router that hits the internet that Google's going to see, because Google's going to be looking for that traffic originating from your office, but they can only see that external IP address. So that's the one we want. So head on over here. I'm going to paste this on top just so I can see it. And we're going to put these in. And we'll go ahead and save this. In this case here, we are excluding IP address from this particular view here. Now again, I recommend that you think about how these will be applied, but a lot of times people do want to exclude their own internal traffic from there, and this is a really simple, easy way to do it. Let's go ahead and look at that second option here. We start this one up. The next thing we could do is we could look at traffic to subdirectories. This is another common thing that people want to do, is they want to either include or exclude traffic from a particular subdirectory to their profile view. Now this is another one that I want to point out here is a little confusing. If I were to say include here, it is an include only. So in this case, I will not get any traffic other than the traffic to these particular subdirectories. If I exclude that, I will get all the traffic except for ones to those subdirectories. Now because these profiles start from the time that I apply them forward, I want to be able to show you this example. I had to kind of do this like the cooking show where I've already applied this one. So let's go back and take a look at that and edit this one. In this case, I said I want to include only the blog. In my case, the blog would be defined as /blog. This is my subdirectory here. I want to include only traffic to that subdirectory that is equal to blog. This has been applied for a little while. We can go ahead and take a look what that looks like. And let me just set a relatively recent date range here. Last couple days or so. Now if we head on down to actually look at the site content that we've got on here, I said I only want to look at the blogs. Now if I look at every single page in this entire profile, what I see here is that it's only picking up stuff that's heading to the blog. So all that this entire view knows about is just what I've allowed into the account, which in this case is just to the blog. As far as it's concerned, these were the only hits that ever existed. So all the analysis that I do, all the bounce rates, all the calculations that get done are going to be on just these hits that were allowed into this account and that pass through these permanent profile filters. Now I want to kind of caution you quickly on this that be careful what you're doing here. A lot of people think that they want to include only certain pages and only certain traffic, but then they're interested in things like shopping carts. Well, if people come to your blog and they check out on your shopping cart is not on the blog. So it will not include in here. So you're not going to get revenue and all those things that would happen on those other pages. So pretty powerful. I encourage you to take a look, but think through exactly what you're doing, particularly when it comes to excluding certain content or including certain content in or out of this view. This was the intro to profile filters. Next, we're going to take a look at the next option down there, which was the custom filters.